Coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
We're here in the Masai Mara with a very full and contented lion. On the other side of the coin, not such good news for that guy. This is Safari Live. Hello and welcome to the Sunset Safari, where this afternoon we will be sharing the joys of both the Kenyan and the South African wilderness from two different filming locations, all completely 100% live. We're starting off this afternoon with a battle-scarred male lion. And just a quick introduction for those of you that perhaps are new to these live safaris. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Manu is on camera with me, and we're coming to you live from the Masai Mara here in Kenya. Because this is completely 100% live, it means that you can send through your questions on #SafariLive on Twitter. We would love to hear from you. And for any of our new viewers, don't be shy. Let us know where you're from and send through any questions that you'd like to ask about the amazing wildlife. We will, as I said, be traveling to and from between Kenya and the Sabi Sand in South Africa. Now, our battle-scarred male lion, for those of you that have been keeping up with the times, is the same male lion that we saw from a distance 2 days ago, I think. Yes, Monday night. It is the same male lion, and fortunately this time he is in an area where we can actually get a little bit closer to him and have a look at the injury around his eye. And it does seem to be quite painful looking. It's very, very common for male lions to obtain facial injuries, often even just in little scraps with their coalition members. But that one does seem to be quite sore, and it does seem to be very, very swollen. Perhaps a little bit of an abscess developing there over his cheekbone. But these animals are far more resilient than human beings. I don't think he's going to need any sort of antibiotic treatment or anything like that. I think he'll fight off the infection. Now, the question, of course, is, I think in this particular case he actually killed this wildebeest all by himself. And the reason that's a valid question is because very often the females kill something and the males come charging in and steal the entire carcass from them, but they are more than capable of hunting for themselves. And I think in this particular case he managed to catch himself a wildebeest. The reason I know that is that the Agamas are on a buffalo kill not far from here. We're going to go off in search of them and see how their cubs are doing. And while we do, let's send you back across to South Africa so that Byron can say good afternoon.
Just over there to the right of that tree. Might get those. Good afternoon everyone, and welcome to South Africa and Djuma. And we are doing some birding quickly. There's some white crested helmet shrikes. Now, we tried to see them this morning, but they flew away from us, but now we've got a lovely view of them. Beautiful birds, but as you can see, they're quite quick to disappear. There's still some in that tree. There they go. Whole group of them. There we go. That's a nice view. Look at that beautiful yellow eye. I really do enjoy seeing these white crested helmet shrikes. The other ones, we get the Retz's helmet shrikes, which we did see this morning. For those of you who missed this morning, I decided to ask viewers to challenge me for the next 2 weeks, sending in requests of things to find over the next 2 weeks. But firstly, good afternoon again. My name is Byron, and on camera with me is Sebastian. Now, what I said was I'm only here for 2 weeks again, so a challenge, well, you can challenge me, see what I can find or what I should try to find in the 2 weeks. And one of the challenges, which actually came from Brent, was to see if I could get 100 bird species. Now, it is winter, so it is going to be a little bit difficult, but I need to get it on camera, so you need to see them. So that's going to be tricky, but I'm going to try my best, and we'll see how many we can get on camera over the next 2 weeks. Now, it's a beautiful, warm, sunny day, winter's day in South Africa on Djuma Game Reserve. Now, we've got, I'm trying to think, the temperature is about 25 degrees Celsius, just over 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So, a lovely winter's day. Blue skies, and as I said, the sun is out. I'm hoping to find some form of predator this afternoon. And we tried this morning, we didn't have any luck. We heard a pride of lions. It sounded like they were south of the boundary, and then we found tracks eventually, and we did see that they had crossed south into Little Gowrie. And I think it is the Styx pride, because the Nkuhuma pride that we saw 2 days ago, we know they headed all the way up in towards the Manyaleti, so north of us. This pride was down in the south. So you never know, we might be able to find them. But we'll see what we can do this afternoon. Now, I'm not the only one out on drive in Djuma this afternoon. My good friend Tristan is also out, and he's managed to find one of my favorite animals already.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our sunset safari from myself, Tristan. And yes, we have, Byron. We've found probably one of my favorite herds that we get to see here, the short trunk herd, which is fantastic. Now, as Byron said, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Senzo, and this is live. It is interactive, which means if you want to ask any questions about anything, not only the elephants, you can do that via hashtag Safari Live or on the YouTube chat, should you want to do so. But it is really exciting because we've come down to Twin Dams, and I was hoping that we would find some Ellies. It's warm this afternoon. It's a pleasant day. The wind has really died down from yesterday, and it is the perfect conditions for elephants to have a drink. And no better herd to start a safari with than the short trunk herd. We haven't seen them for the last few days. They seem to have, well, for the last few weeks actually, I haven't seen them for a while. They seem to have moved out of our area, but it's good to see them back, and that's short trunk herself. You can see she's got her trunk in her mouth at the moment, but she'll soon pull it out and we'll be able to see that that trunk is shorter. Now, for those of you who are new viewers and do not know who short trunk is and why we call her short trunk, as you can see there, she's got a bit of a stubby trunk. Now, unfortunately, I would imagine that that trunk is shorter due to snaring. Now, snaring is a process where you'll find people on the fringes of reserves will often put out wire traps in order to catch small animals, so things like duiker and Steenboks and varying antelopes, for food. And their problem with that is that sometimes the Ellies, being inquisitive animals, put their trunks through there, and it then latches around the trunk, and the more they struggle, the tighter it gets, and unfortunately it does do damage to their trunks, particularly because there's no bone in there. It often just will go all the way through, and it leaves this female with a shorter trunk. Now, that hasn't stopped her surviving, even though it is shorter and it will be a little bit of a hindrance. She's still in some ways able to do what she needs to do. You can see she's full, she's healthy, which means that she's actually feeding properly, and as you can see by there, she's not even struggling to get water. So what she does is she puts her trunk in. She has to bend a little bit to get her trunk into the water, a little bit more than what other Ellies would have to. But once she sucks up a few liters of water, you'll find she pushes it out in almost like a jet propulsion. And sometimes you'll find when she's feeling a little lazy that she actually won't bring her trunk all the way to her mouth. She'll bring it up halfway, and then she just shoots the fountain of water inside, which is quite fun to watch. So far, she's just been drinking like normal. But you can see Ellies are interesting creatures. They really like fresh water. So when you watch her, you'll see that sometimes she'll just disturb the water slightly. And what she's trying to do is break the surface tension of that water. On the surface tension, you often find dust, particularly at this time of the year where it's windy and dry. There's lots of dust that settles on the top of that water. There'll also be insects and varying other things. Now, before I carry on, there's a grey go-away bird behind me that is complaining bitterly about something. I can't see where it is, but if you can hear in that distance that sound, that is a grey go-away bird that is not happy. And normally when they make that sound, it is either if they've seen a predator on the ground, or they could maybe have seen an owl. And there's been so many owls hanging around the Mulawati, I wonder if there isn't one perched in this big jackalberry that's behind me at the moment. We'll have to go and investigate just now. But I was saying that she'll break the surface tension, and that means that she won't have to suck up any of that dust and debris. She can get to the cleaner water underneath, which is very clever. Now, we're going to sit with our herd because they seem as though they are very relaxed. They're not going anywhere at this stage, and why would you? In warm weather like this, it's the perfect place to rest and relax. And while we do that, I believe Byron has found himself another feather friend as he continues to forge his way to 100 birds in 2 weeks.
Oh dear, well Tristan, we did find another feathered friend and it flew away, unfortunately. Let's see if we can find it again. It was a beautiful raptor. It was a brown snake eagle. I was hoping to show you that. It was perched beautifully up on the top of the tree, but now I wonder where it went. Can't believe it. This getting the birds on camera is going to be harder than I thought. They don't stick around for very long. Is it not sitting in the tree there, perhaps? Oh, well.
Everyone, it seems as though, I think it was Byron that you were with, his signal disappeared. It's just one of those things of, well, essentially bringing you a live safari from the middle of somewhere, whether it's South Africa or whether it is from Kenya. I forgot to mention, and I apologize for this, I forgot to mention that you all know, most of you know that male lion relatively well. He's part of the Chitwa male coalition of this area, and his name is Fang, because he's missing his bottom right canine. So you have met him before. We've seen him mating in the past with females of this area. And he is the father of, well, he is one of the potential fathers of the Agama cubs. And speaking of the Angamas, we're trundling along their favorite place in the entire world, which is this lugga, or river system, that runs all the way along towards the marsh from the escarpment. And apparently they have killed a buffalo over here, so that's what we're going off in search of. Looks like they're quite far down. So while we journey back along, let's go back to Tristan and one of my favorite elephant herds on Djuma.
Now, unfortunately, a bit of technical issues here and there, so welcome back to our little Ellie herd that is still taking it very easy at the moment. You can see it's all sedate. I don't know what this little one is busy doing, but it's working out a way to put its trunk in upside down at this stage. So baby Ellies have got to be the cutest things in the world. They have such personalities, and they always seem to be up to something, from twisting their trunks and putting it in their mouth in odd ways, to splashing water, and just generally going crazy. And it's always such a treat to spend time around young elephants, and this particular one is not the youngest that we get out here. In fact, it's probably now already close to 4 years old. We should start to see its tusks poking through any minute now, so it's getting on the older side, and it will have complete use of that trunk by now. It will have learned how to control it, so that's more just gamesmanship as it kind of flops it around and moves it up and down the body, and, well, you can see scratching the leg in a rather interesting way as well. Surprised after drinking that we see a bit of dust bathing. In fact, we can see this female in front is starting to do it. So she's come to a patch of looser sand, and this is what they will do. Often if they've been at water, they spray a bit of water on themselves, and after they've sprayed water, they then come and dust bathe. And the reason why is that that wet surface area of the skin, this dust will stick to them, and that means that when it sticks, they can then go and rub later, and it will help with the exfoliation of the skin, keeping the skin in good condition. But it also will create somewhat of a barrier between the sun and themselves, and just help to maintain that body temperature slightly. Of course, the ears do most of that, but it will help in a little way as well. Shannon, you're wondering when an elephant sucks the water up their trunk, where does it go before they spray it back out? Well, Shannon, if you look at their trunk, it's rather long, and you'll find when they drink water, they actually extend their trunk quite a bit, and so they suck up it all the way to a membrane that sits just as the trunk is basically going into the sinus cavities, and that membrane will seal off, and the water then gets pushed up into that area. So these adult elephants, a big female like the one at the back, if she had a whole trunk, she'd be holding close to 8 liters of water inside there, and they then suck up until it gets to that membrane and the trunk is full, and then they bend it and they squirt it into the mouth. You'll then find when they bend it and they squirt in, the last little bit they actually don't spray into their mouth at all, and that's what collects in the bend of the trunk. And the reason why they don't squirt all the water in is because sediment builds up in that little bend, and so they then drop their trunk and spray out that sediment so that they're not drinking sand. Are you going to come say hello? I don't know what it is with the elephants at the moment, but they're all wanting to come and have a close experience with us. Maybe she wants our shade, but she's come right up to the edge of the vehicle as if to come and say hello to all of you. You can see the vehicle just next to her, and she's just sniffing around in that area. I wonder if maybe another herd of elephants hasn't been. I see there's quite a damp spot on the ground there, so maybe another herd of elephants has been here during the day and just wanted to come and have a little look and see what's been happening. But it's amazing the close interactions we get here in the Sabi Sands with our Ellies. Our elephants tend to be super relaxed with us. Like I say, maybe we're in her shade. This tree is the only bit of shade close to the water, so it's possible that she's just coming here for a bit of coolness, and that's why she moved in this direction. Probably not too happy that we've taken most of it. Now, Robert, this is a very interesting one, and one that probably a lot of people don't think about, but you want to know that when we drive around and we drive through the various dung piles that litter the road, does that not confuse the various animals because we're spraying and spreading their dung all over the show? Now, Robert, possibly, if it is very fresh dung, if we had to drive through something like an elephant that's just defecated, you might get a bit of debris that will stick to the tires. But for the most part, a lot of this dung, particularly from elephants and the varying antelope species, is quite coarse, and so it doesn't actually stick too well. Even if you grab it with your hands and you break it apart, it won't stick to your hand, so it doesn't really stick to the tire. You might get a bit of liquid that goes onto your tire itself and rolls a few meters, but it really won't go too far. The amount of sand that is on the roads will basically scrub those tires of that scent, and so the scent doesn't spread that far. You might find that they sniff around in that area, but generally I don't think it makes too much of a difference. Remember that also a lot of these animals will carry some sort of scent in their actual track themselves. If you think of things like rhinos that scent mark using their back legs, you'll even think of lions and leopards that often urinate while they're scraping their back legs. There's a scent that's actually on their feet. So even though they haven't defecated, they're still walking, and they'll use that to be able to track one another. So these animals are a lot more intelligent than what we give them credit for, and I can imagine that even us driving and spraying their dung in few places is not going to be powerful enough to divert them from the actual track that the animal has walked or has defecated on, because that track will probably smell a lot more pungent than our vehicle track. But I see our little one is now starting to have a bit of a drink, so once you've had water, it's now time to have a little bit of milk, just to top up on lunchtime treats. It's supposedly dessert. Now this little one is not going to be drinking for too much longer. As soon as this female starts to have another calf, she will then probably butt this one away, and they normally stop suckling at around sort of 2 to 4 years. Sometimes they're a little bit cheeky and they push their luck, and I've seen ones as old as 5 and 6 also being able to suckle. So it sometimes does happen in their favor, but you'll find that this female's milk is going to start drying up and is not going to be too much unless she has a calf fairly soon. Now, I believe Byron is still going on with his bird challenge and has another feathered friend, so before this one flies away, let's quickly jump across to him.
Well, we saw a white-backed vulture this morning, but this one is on the nest, and we have seen chicks here. I was hoping that we might get a glimpse of the chicks this afternoon, but I haven't seen any movement yet. Perhaps that adult is just hiding the chicks at the moment. You can't see them very clearly, but I'm sure they're up there. You can hear some grey hornbills calling. We saw them this morning too. Must be honest, this birding challenge is going to be quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. Our leopard lover, I think it was you, asked just before you cut away from us. You asked if I could find Shadow and try to see how she is doing. I'll do my best. I haven't seen Shadow yet. I've not seen that leopard since I've been at Safari Live. For some reason, just haven't been lucky with seeing her. But we'll try. See, maybe she pops up somewhere. Sebastian and I are going to head towards Treehouse Dam. I'm just going to have a look around there now. One of the other guides yesterday afternoon, or actually yesterday evening, managed to see a young male leopard. Hang on, we've got 2 new birds here. Crested Barbet. There it is. Beautiful crested barbet. Always lovely to see them. And then there is a Burchell's starling just on the grassy little patch, the open area just off to our left. There we go, the Burchell's starling, so that's another one. As I was saying this morning, we're going to have to go through all the common birds that we see regularly. We've got to get through all of them to get the numbers up a little bit. So we'll see. We haven't even got hornbills yet, yellow-billed or red-billed. We caught a glimpse of ground hornbills a few minutes ago, but they, unfortunately, were moving through some thick grass, long grass. We couldn't see them properly. Right, well, let's head back to Jamie all the way in the Mara, and she's still sitting with those lions.
I am indeed. Well, I'm actually sitting with a different set of lions. In this case, the Agama pride and the tiny little cubs that are feasting on a buffalo kill that unfortunately is very, very far away. This is the first time I've ever seen them on a buffalo kill. I've seen them hunt zebra, I've seen them hunt wildebeest, gazelle, but I've never seen them hunt buffalo before. The only interaction I've seen with the Angamas and buffalo has been when the buffalo chased the cubs into their den site. And one of them just dragged a piece back behind that grass. And I think what we'll do is we'll keep shifting around till we find a good view. Oh, we've got a lioness sitting up. Let's quickly grab her before she flops back down again. There's one sitting, Manu, if you look there. Perfect, thank you. I think what we'll do is we'll try and shift around, try and see if we can get a better position. Otherwise, I'll wait till it's a little bit cooler and we'll come back here towards the end of our time out on the sunset safari and see whether or not the cool weather encourages the lion cubs to come out and play. Now, apparently, in theory, it's 24 degrees Celsius, 75 Fahrenheit. I don't think that is the case down here. I would say this is probably the closest to 30 degrees that I've experienced since I've moved out here to the Mara. It's hot. It's really, really hot today, especially in the sun. And I think that the lions are probably going to spend as much time as possible in the shade. But you can't keep cubs from being playful. And once it gets a bit cooler, I think they're going to pop out and start to play. And these hot days have developed into really quite ominous thunderclouds these last 2 days. Now, Bob, you want to know if, because Taylor is on her way to Kenya, whether or not that means that we'll be heading back towards South Africa. Not just yet, Bob. Quite honestly, I think after a couple of very long weeks, a holiday is going to be most welcome. We're going to be taking a brief break, and then we'll be back here in the Mara once again. So no, we're not coming back to South Africa just yet. We're going to be here for a little while longer. But it has been, as incredible as this experience has been, they finally had to convince us to take a holiday. So Brent and myself will be going on leave for a little while. Taylor's coming, and I'm sure she's in fact, I'm not even sure, I know she's super excited, and I can't wait for her to get here, because you can show her all of these amazing things and take her out so she can show her the different places and the different secrets we've learned. I'm very, very excited for Taylor to see this place. Right, let's go back across to Tristan. It took me a while to fathom what Kirsty just said in my ear, but let's go back to Tristan and his short-trunked elephant herd.
Well, our little Ellie herd is still feeding away right next to us. They are very content at the moment, and it's such a joy to watch this herd. It's amazing to see a female that has a disability thriving, and it always makes me wonder where she's come from, that she has such a small grouping. Maybe due to the fact that she had this disability to start with, she separated off with her first calf, and since then has had 2 more, and that's why we just see the 4 of them, because I reckon that they're all related to that big female. I reckon it's her first, second and third that she's got all together here, which is quite amazing. But it's just wonderful to watch her feeding and how even this lack of these two little fingers at the end of her trunk, she's still able to manipulate and move branches. It's almost like she's learned that if she stretches her muscles slightly, the end of that trunk, even though it's scarred and it's all cut off, can actually bend slightly around things. So she's even still able to pick up branches. I was watching her just now pick up one and wrap it around and then put it into her mouth. It really is fascinating to see how she does it. Rainbow, who's 3 years old. Hello, Rainbow, and welcome to the biggest safari vehicle in the world, Rainbow. It's nice to hear from you, and you want to know if the elephants like to sleep in the water. Well, Rainbow, no, they don't sleep in the water, because otherwise they're going to hurt themselves. If they sleep in the water, they're going to, unfortunately, their trunk is going to go underwater in their mouth, and that means water will go into their body, and they're not going to be able to live if they do that. So these are animals that have to breathe air like us, Rainbow, so we can't go underwater and sleep. We will, unfortunately, not be very well if we do that, and it's the same with the elephants. So you'll find the elephants, they like to play in water, and they'll roll around, and they'll splash, and they'll go crazy in the water, but they're not going to sleep in it. When they want to sleep, they'll go and find a nice shady place under a tree, and they'll go lie there. If there's no shade, then they'll go lie in their mom's shade, because their mom produces a big shadow, like our car. You can see there's a big shadow here where our car is, and they can go and lie down. There you go. Senzo's waving, and you can see him in his shadow there. So that's how they'll sleep, but no, they don't sleep in the water. It's too dangerous for them to sleep in the water. But look at our little one. So I was saying earlier that it can use its trunk more than sufficiently, and you can see it there. It's feeding off this guarri perfectly. Now, it's interesting that they're feeding off guarris. You can tell that it's that time of the year where we're starting to get very dry, and there's a lot of food starting to disappear as the temperatures start to spike in this run-up to spring and summer. So we see a lot of the vegetation dying back, and that means that they've got to resort to less tasty plants like the guarri. The thing about the guarri is that it produces a lot of tannins, and that's why the Ellies don't really like it. It's quite a bitter leaf, but they are going to start flowering and fruiting soon, which the Ellies do love. Now, I believe Byron has got not a very big animal, in fact on the complete opposite spectrum to our Ellies, and is the smallest carnivore out here.
We've got a beautiful dwarf mongoose, a family of dwarf mongooses. I'm just playing around the termite mound. They're scurrying all over, actually. There's quite a... Look at that. That's wonderful. Very beautiful. I do enjoy seeing these little dwarf mongoose scurrying about, looking for insects, looking for food. Look at that. I'm really enjoying this afternoon so far. It's funny, I often find if you relax and you take it easy and do a bit of birding, you start seeing a lot of other things too. Yeah? Oh wow, look at that, well spotted, Seb. That looks like a giant plated lizard, and it's just the tail sticking out there. Well spotted. Let me wait, let me go back a little bit. Let me go back a little bit. There, Seb, you should get it through there. There we go. Have a look at that. Awesome. That's not, I haven't seen one of those for ages. Nice. Look at that, sunning itself outside the terminal. That's cool. You see, as I was saying, start doing a bit of birding and things start popping up. Christine, you asked what a group of mongoose are called, and if I'm not mistaken, it's called a business of mongoose. Business of mongoose. I'm listening to some grey go-away birds calling. There's actually a lot going on here. There's a lot of dwarf mongoose all over. Scurrying. Oh, isn't that a beautiful picture? Francis, no, that lizard's actually quite dwarf mongoose. So they wouldn't eat that. You can see it's not phased by the mongoose at all. Quite a few of them now are coming out and having a look at us. You can hear them chattering away there. Look at that, enjoying the afternoon sun. The mongoose, especially the dwarf mongoose, they do enjoy the sunlight. Warming themselves up. Look at that, grooming each other. Gary, now the largest species of mongoose, we do actually get them here. I've not seen for quite a while, but they are the white-tailed mongoose. That's the largest species of mongoose, the white-tailed mongoose, or largest in Africa. And we do get them here, but they are nocturnal, Gary, and they're also solitary, so you don't often see them. We see their tracks from time to time. I actually saw white-tailed mongoose tracks this morning, but I haven't seen for quite some time. Alright, well, I'm going to scan around the dam a little bit and see what else we can find. Let's head back to Jamie all the way in the Mara and
my afternoon's going great, thanks. It wasn't my fault, Kirsty. It was that gentleman's fault who wanted to ask me where the lions were. There's one right there, mister. Oh, the secretary bird curse strikes once again. That wasn't my fault. That wasn't my fault. It wasn't Kirsty's fault either that time. I'm starting to take it personally. No, stop chasing my secretary bird away. Now it's running. Oh, mister. What did you do? I will get the secretary bird on camera now. One bird, Byron's unlikely, but it's not impossible here to add to his 100 bird list. Yes, that's the right direction. That way, that way. Off you go. So I can come back to my secretary bird. It's so difficult to explain to people, and it's the Murphy's Law. When you're about to receive a link from Djuma or from one of the other Mara vehicles, somebody wants directions to somewhere. Here we go. I found it. Kirsty, don't say I don't ever give you anything. There you go. We did it. We managed. And of course, it was a really nice sighting earlier, but this is okay. It was hopping around, showing off its what looked like the sort of three-quarter yoga pants that it's wearing. I just love watching the way that they hunt. I could spend ages just sitting and watching them. There's a sort of a little tap-tap that they do When they manage to find something, it's almost like they're dancing. And of course those feathers on the top of their head don't harm either. They remind me of the dice moth caterpillars. Oh, secretary bird, why must you be so far away and facing the wrong direction? Stalking through the grass. Justin, absolutely, this one has a marvellous hat. In fact, it's sort of... I come up with a different description of a secretary bird every time I see them, but it's sort of... What would be the equivalent of the Royal Ascot or the Durban July, where everybody really goes all out on their outfits, including their hats? It does look like some kind of elaborate hairpiece. Timmy TV, yes, the secretary bird can and does fly. In fact, that was why we didn't show it to you initially, because it flew away. They can fly, they are quite large birds, but I find them to be quite graceful flyers. And they'll actually roost in trees, and they will also... I've forgotten what I was saying. Oh yes, they'll nest in trees and they'll roost in trees, is what I was trying to say. And they also fight in the air when the males come into conflict with each other. Something I've only ever seen once. Now, Craig, while we watch this one pecking through the grass, having sat and watched them for many an hour, that's what they seem to be feeding on mainly. They're proper raptors. And you can see they're hot by the way that they pant. They've got open beaks and they're panting because, well, this one's panting because it is so hot this afternoon. Off it goes, stalking through the grass. At least we managed to get it on camera. Let me get out of this vehicle's way while I think about Aaron's question, which is, what bird is the closest relative of the secretary bird? Aaron, I'm actually really not sure. They're raptors. They're birds of prey. They are birds of prey. I don't know which family they would be closest to. I would suggest that they'd be closest to something like the gymnogenes or the harrier hawks. They're cipiters. But I'm honestly not sure. I'll have to look that up and get back to you on that. Or if you do know the answer to that question, you can send it through on #SafariLive on Twitter. It's a bird of prey. It's related to eagles, to hawks, but the closest relative, I'm honestly not sure. I'll go and have a quick look. Let's go back to Tristan with an animal that most definitely is not the closest relative of the secretary bird.
So we've answered the reason as to why these elephants are feeding off the quarry so intently, because at the moment, if you look at this particular quarry, which is where all the elephants have congregated all of a sudden, there are thousands upon thousands of tiny little yellow flowers. You can just see them there, and those will be packed full of nutrients, and you'll find that these Ellies are going to go after them. You can see that it's a little yellow ball, and then as it starts to open up, so it becomes white, and they will be full of sweet nectar, and that's what the Ellies are after. So the rest of the year, you won't find them eating guarri trees too much, but now it's all about the flowers and getting that nectar. You can imagine at this time of the year when everything's dry and dusty, to get flowers is a very big treat. And the knobthorns, most of them will have been eaten at a level that the elephants can reach, so you'll only find the tallest knobthorns still with flowers, and now these guys will be the next plant that they target, because in this area we don't see too many sausage trees. Sausage trees should be flowering now in other parts of the reserve, so unfortunately up here they don't get those. So Zach, who's 7 years old, hello Zach, you want to know how long an elephant tusk can grow to? Well, Zach, here in South Africa, I think the longest tusk, if I remember correctly, I'm just trying to remember this, was just over 7 foot, I think, if I remember correctly. I'll check it for you and make 100% sure, but 7 feet, which is massive. That is a very, very long tusk, very, very thick as well, and they are magnificent when you see tusks like that. Unfortunately, though, Zach, because of people, we're starting to lose a lot of those animals. People have been hunting them and trying to get to their ivory, because that's what their tusk is referred to as, and it's very valuable. And so a lot of those big tuskers, as we call them, are no longer with us, which is a bit of a shame. So it's about that length. I'll check. It might actually be a bit longer now that I think about it, but I'll check and make 100% sure for you, Zach, and then I'll let you know a little bit later as to exactly how big they can get. Now, our grey go-away bird is calling again. I don't know if maybe there's an owl somewhere here that is just tucked up against one of the trees, and with the eddies moving around every now and then it just moves, because it keeps making a lot of noise, but I can't see anything else. I don't see any sign of a predator. There's no tracks for a predator anywhere, so it can't be that there's a cat around. It must be some sort of bird of prey. So hopefully we'll be able to find it. I'm going to keep scanning all the trees and making very sure that I can't see it, because we know that the Mulawati is a great place for owls. We've found the rose eagle owls and spotted eagle owls here in the last few days, and there will be quite a few scops, and there will be a few others. Now, what have you got there, Senzo? What's flying so high? It looks like a bird of prey, and it is a fish eagle that just flew over. So there was a black spot that went over us, and it was a fish eagle. Now, I'm sure that fish eagle is slowly but surely cruising its way towards Chitwa Dam. I don't think you're going to get it. It's directly overhead at the moment, Senzo. Now, our Ellies are still feeding along the banks, and we might start thinking about meandering off as it starts to get to thicker vegetation. And while we do that, I believe Byron has found something that is in serious numbers in East Africa, but for us here in South Africa is a bit of a treat now and then.
It is indeed. Perhaps the migration has reached Djuma. We've got a small herd of wildebeest now, as Tristan was saying, not nearly as many as the rest of the team see up in the Mara, but always nice to see them here on Djuma. And I haven't seen wildebeest for a few days, or for quite some time. It's always nice to see them passing through. Now you can see not nearly as many as you would get up in East Africa, but imagine little Djuma covered in wildebeest. It would look quite funny. So nice to see a small group like this passing through. I can hear a fish eagle calling in the distance, possibly all the way at Chitwa Dam. I think it sounds like it's coming from there. It's quite far. You see how some of the wildebeest are resting and some still grazing. Now, when last did you see wildebeest, Sebastian?
That's a good question. I'd say a few days.
Yeah, also, yeah.
We used to have lots of them on quarantine.
We used to, yeah. It depends on the time of year. On the clearings above camp, we always see a lot of wildebeest and zebra, especially in the summer months. But recently we haven't seen too many of them up there. Gary, you asked if we get the black wildebeest here in Djuma. No, we don't. I actually saw black wildebeest this past weekend. I was in an area known as Clarence, which is basically in the Free State, kind of the central part of South Africa, I suppose, up in the mountains near the border of Lesotho, which is another country within South Africa. So the up on the mountains there, Lesotho, Drakensberg area, and saw black wildebeest out there. It's so nice to see them. They look very different, and I'll try to show all of you an image. Let me just get my book quickly. I'll try to show you a picture of the black wildebeest compared to the blue wildebeest. But they prefer what we call the high veld. So not down here. This area is known as the low veld. So kind of the high veld, the central part of South Africa. There we go. Let me show you quickly what they look like. Is that lights okay there, Seb?
Yeah,
there we go. Look at that. Those long white tails, and then very hairy faces. Do you see that? Very different to the blue wildebeest that we see here. And also, if you have a look at the horns, just up here, look how the horns actually bend forward and then backwards, or back up. See that? Very different to the blue wildebeest. Let me just show you image quickly of the blue wildebeest. Well, there they are. Well, there you can just see the difference quite clearly. See how these horns move off to the side? Very different, and no hairy faces. So we don't get those black wildebeest here, but I did see some this weekend in another part of South Africa, as I said, up in the mountains near the Drakensberg. And it was wonderful to see them out there. Beautiful, beautiful landscape. Alright, now Tristan seems to be having a lot of fun with those elephants this afternoon. I'm very jealous. Let's go back to him. I'm not sure if Tristan is feeding or if the elephant is feeding.
Well, Byron, it's not you that we're talking about. I'm not nearly as bad when it comes to snacking as Byron. Byron seems to permanently have something that is being put into his mouth that is biceps the size of Byron's that you need to keep eating. But we are having fun with our Ellies. It's hard to leave them when you're sitting below them and you can see them at almost eye level and watch them feeding. Now Byron says he's detoxing and that he's on a fitness campaign. Well, we'll have to wait and see, Byron, because I've seen you tucking into Happiness's cookies that she's made. I saw Taylor brought you a plate of them yesterday and you had no trouble in disposing of a few of them, so it's hard for Byron to control himself. Look at that dust coming off of the flowers as they pull as well. Now, Lisa, you're wondering at what age does an elephant have full control of its trunk? They really have worked out what to do with it and are able to actually break off vegetation, drink, feed, and not have too many worries. But prior to that, they pretty much have a grasp of it. It takes a little bit longer sometimes for some of them. You'll get 2.5 months for some, but a 4-year-old elephant is having no problems in using its trunk to feed whatsoever. It even has the slapping and getting rid of the dust down pat. There's a lot of flies around where we are at the moment, a lot of these biting flies, so you might find that they're also just trying to get rid of some of those too. Oh, down the hill we go. So, Craig, you're wondering how much an elephant needs to eat every day. Well, Craig, it depends on the area that they're in as well as the time of the year and the nutrition available. In the summer months, we tend to find that our elephants here in the Kruger Park eat about 4% of their body weight. So some of our elephants here will weigh close to 6 tons, so you can work that out. It's close to 300 pounds of food a day. 300 kilograms of food a day for the big adult males. Whereas in winter, you'll find that they'll actually up that to closer to 6% of their body weight. So whatever they weigh, 6% of that would be about what they would have to consume. And the reason why is because in winter, most of our vegetation is devoid of nutrients and therefore better to be able to eat, have to eat more to be able to sustain that nutrition and get more. Now, Zach, earlier you were asking me about the tusks just quickly, that they are on average about 7 feet in length, but the record length, Zach, is 10 feet, which is absolutely massive, 3 meters long. Now, we're going to move along, and I'm trying to follow this go-away bird as it makes noise. And while we do that, let's go back to Jamie, who seems to be bumbling along in the beautiful East African plains.
I'm bumbling around in the beautiful East African mud, and I've actually been having so much fun slip-sliding around. And there are only 2 rules, is that I don't make ruts in the road and that I don't splash Manu with mud. And beyond that, we've been doing a little bit of sliding, a little bit of having fun on the road itself. Whee! It's been fun. Whoopsie. But pride comes before a fall. It's not quite wet enough for us to get stuck, but it's wet enough for us to have fun. It's rained. I mean, I didn't realize it must have rained quite a lot for the road to be this muddy. I mean, I was watching the weather come in this afternoon before I went on drive, trying to work out if we were going to need raincoats. And it didn't look this bad. Obviously, it was sufficient to create a slippy slide from one road to another. I'm on my way to some elephants as well. I haven't sat with elephants in what feels like forever. Whoopsie. It might be nice to spend a little bit of time with them. Oh goodness, there's the road. That was close. What's happening here? Why is everybody... Oh, whee! Okay, now we're sideways. Now we're sideways. There's a baby. Is it a baby wildebeest? I would really like to turn now. There we go. There we go. Hold on, Manu. This is sticky enough for us to get stuck in. I want to go see what they're looking at. They can't all be taking photos of a dead tree. Oh, somebody else did this as well. Oh, sideways again. Sideways again. Slight overcorrection. Okay, I'm going to go and see what it is everybody's looking at. Let's go back across to Byron, who's found a lovely pair of little antelope.
Now we've got two beautiful little antelope just hiding in the grass. There's a Steenbok, the male, and then the female was just in front of him. He was following the female. Not sure if he's interested in her, perhaps. I think so. Now, we do know the Steenbok are monogamous. So they do stay together in pairs. Obviously, if something happens to one, then the other one will find a new partner. But they stay together and they mate for life, the Steenbok. Beautiful, beautiful little antelope, and that's full grown. It's tiny. I mean, as you saw when Seb zoomed out, you could see how small they are. They almost disappear. The male has those little horns, the females don't. That's the easiest way to tell them apart. Still scanning around for birds, trying to get our bird list up. Justin, you asked what is my favorite antelope. My favorite antelope, I would have to say, is the Gemsbok, or also known as the oryx. I love the oryx. Beautiful, those grey animals with that black and bit of white markings on them. They're very, very beautiful. Now we find them in semi-arid to desert areas, very dry areas. They've got those long, straight horns, and I don't know why. I love the look of a Gemsbok or the oryx. Wonderful, wonderful antelope. I'm trying to think if there's another one I enjoy out here. The Kudu. It's always nice seeing those big male Kudu. I think, they're one of my favorites. Now speaking of Kudu, Big Boss Man has found one, and let's see what his favorite antelope is.
Well, Byron, you're looking at it. It is a big, beautiful kudu. Be impressed by a kudu bull when they're big ones like this, and you're sitting slightly lower than them. You realize just how big this antelope is, and he's got such nice wide gap between the. See that long beard that comes off the. Continuing to eat, but there's that beard that we're talking about. So they're similar to Nyala and Bushbuck in that they get the beard. They don't get quite as hairy as what the Nyala get. The Nyala males tend to have a lot more shaggy coat than what the kudu do, but you can see that he is a magnificent individual. And like I say, he's not too worried about us now. First he was a little bit nervous, checking out. And now that he's realized there's no sign, he's just watching and feeding. And you can see perfectly now how the horn spirals, and that's why it's part of this family, the Tragolaphans. They all have what basically sets them apart from the other antelope that we get out here. So Bushbuck, Nyala, Kudu, and the one that I wish we saw here, that Jamie will be seeing fairly regularly up in East Africa, the eland. I know Taylor's looking forward to seeing them, and I'm sure a lot of the team have enjoyed actually spending time around the eland. It's such a massive animal. It's really one of the animals that I wish we saw here on a more regular basis. Now these kudu bulls, this is perfect environment for them. You find them often spread through these thickets along the banks of riverbeds. We're deep in the Mlawati now, and this is the perfect place for kudu to survive. Not only is there lots of vegetation for a browsing animal to feed off, but there is also a lot of cover. It means that they can stay well hidden from the multitude of predators out here. Although a big bull like this really only has to worry about lions. You might find a leopard that's brave enough to try it, but it would have to be a big male leopard like Tingana or Anderson, but the rest of them are not going to worry about something that big, but it will be lions mostly. And so in this thicket they can hide away. You can see as this animal starts to go behind vegetation, that grey coloration will blend in very well, and those white stripes are going to break up that outline, and you're going to get a nice pattern that's going to break it up, and you won't be able to see these guys too easily. Also, the horns being that irregular shape means that they blend into the treed area quite well, and you can see now that Senzo's come out how well that animal camouflages. If it stands dead still and just moves about a meter to the right, it would be very difficult for us to see it there. And so they love spending time in these areas. Those big ears allow them to hear what's going on. You can hear now that there's a bird calling, that they'll lift their ears up and listen to what's going on. And he's just listening to what's going on. Now I believe that we have a slightly pixelated kudu, which is our Picasso kudu. We'll call him Picasso, and I do know that it is happening, and I'm sorry that it is. It's a few technical glitches that we have, and hopefully we will work on it and be able to sort it out for all of you. But for now we'll just have to go Art Nouveau with our Picasso kudu, and we'll cross it over to Byron, and hopefully he's not something out of a crazy painting and his face is not melting all over the place or having block-like patterns, although I'm sure Byron wouldn't mind either way. Now we're going to carry on, but I believe Byron has, I hope it's Genet Jackson, and is just casually taking it easy in a hole.
Yes. No. Oh, look. Everyone, that little Genet is here. It's that that Genet that we found a few weeks ago, and it's still in this tree stump in that same hole. Every now and then it sticks its head out and has a look at us. Hopefully it's getting a bit more relaxed with us, popping around and saying hi. Look at that beautiful pattern. Come on, show us your face, please. Oh, just up it goes. See, what happens is it just goes further up into that tree and hides away. But luckily we got to see it. Oh, that was a nice little surprise. Oh, nice little Genet. It did stick its face out once or twice, very quickly, very briefly. But so nice to see. I love those little Genets. One of my favorite little creatures, nocturnal creatures. I haven't seen that one that apparently there's one that comes into camp, but I haven't seen it yet. I don't know why. Last night Last night we had hyena in the camp. I had to run and chase one out because it was attacking the dustbins, but no Genet. Anyway, let's head across to Jamie, who's got apparently a rather large herd of elephants she wants to show you in the Mara.
I do. We just missed getting here as they were crossing the road, but we've got this little one munching on a piece of grass that looks truly appetizing and moving through the long grass. And then the rest of the elephants are scattered a little bit further along with the zebra that have arrived back once again at the foot of the escarpment. There's some more on their way, so I'm going to sit and relax for a little bit with the elephants because I haven't seen them in ages, and every time I see a baby elephant, I can't help but wonder, or even just an elephant herd in this area, I can't help but wonder if it has the little one that we saw take its very first steps. Not too far away from here, not that long ago. That baby elephant must be, 2 months old now? When was it? I can't remember. Must be 2 months old now. And maybe that one at the back there, Manu. You see that one there? By the tree. Oh, there's another big elephant in front of it. Oh dear. It could be that little one. That one looks about old enough. There you go. You sit there to the right of that one. There you go. In the middle of your screen now. That little one. That's a tiny, tiny baby. I don't know if I'd recognize Mum. Now, Chandler, you want to know... Oh, I love baby elephants. You want to know if elephants migrate out of the Mara. Migrate is possibly not the correct term, because they don't move in sort of en masse. But they do move in and out of the Mara. They can. They'll move from the sort of the Mara Triangle, which is where we are now, into the conservancy surrounding us. And they can move down towards Tanzania if they so wish, just in the same way that the wildebeest and the zebra pass freely between the two countries. So they can go down to the Serengeti if the mood strikes them. What we do find, apparently, is that at the height of the migration, the elephants tend to move up into the hills and the mountains. I will say that I did notice when there were thousands of wildebeest around here that the elephants were not completely absent, but they were definitely less around than there had been before. Or perhaps I was just distracted by the thousands of wildebeest, but I don't think so. And I think all of that noise and confusion, it sort of serves to not scare them away, but push them away. Especially when you've got a little one like the one on the right there, which I know we've just looked at, but it's just so cute and it's separate from the rest of the herd. That's not our newborn Ellie, or the one that we watched take its first steps, because Mum doesn't have any tusks. And the female that gave birth the day we were watching did have tusks. Oh, little trunk up in the air like a snorkel. So elephants don't migrate necessarily in this area, but they do move about, and they're free to move about as they please. It would be fantastic to know exactly what it is that provokes their movement. Laurie, looking at this little one, you want to know if it's more dangerous for the elephants during the migration. No, I don't think so. Oh, it's tinier than the zebra, you know. I don't think it is. In fact, I think it might even be safer. There's not much that's a massive threat to an elephant out here. The lions in this area generally don't hunt elephant, and they're the only thing that's large enough to. The hyenas could potentially go for tiny, tiny baby elephants, but again, that requires messing with Mum, who obviously has quite a temper and is very, very protective. So I don't think that there's any great danger to the elephants all year round, and I don't think that the migration changes that. The only thing I did consider in terms of the migration, because we had that young male elephant that was separate from the rest of his herd for a couple of days, and I wondered if perhaps in the confusion, if occasionally babies don't get lost and confused, especially slightly older youngsters that are not always essentially tied at the hip to their mothers. I don't know. It's just a thought. I have nothing to back that up. Just a supposition. It might be that elephants are sophisticated enough to stay together even in the midst of a stampede in the dark. Such a peaceful sight. Come on, little one. Everyone's leaving without you. Oh, hello. hello to Elena. A second sunset safari in a row, Elena. She's 14 years old and one of our regular viewers. Elena, you want to know if the elephants in the Mara eat differently to the ones in the Sabi sand. I would say that their diet is much more grass-based. I have seen them feeding off the seeds and off the branches of some of the torchwoods, but I would say that the vast majority of their diet is grass, especially at this time of year, when the grasses are still plentiful. I would say that makes sense. And perhaps and I mean, you can see it from the ecosystem that we're in. It's just so much more open. The grasses are of exceptionally good quality in terms of their nutrient value. But, I mean, otherwise, all of the feeding process remains the same. They still use their trunks in the normal way. Tony, speaking of lions and hunting elephants, how many lions would it take to take on a full-grown Ellie? Even the lions that do specialize in hunting elephants tend to go for the sort of prepubescent bulls, or the bulls around about 13 to 15 that are separate from the rest of the herd, just because taking on a full-grown Ellie that is a really dangerous thing for a lion to attempt. An elephant is exceptionally strong. If I had to guess and say, could a pride of 30 take on an elephant? Yes, probably, with males involved. Maybe it would be even less. Maybe it would be 20. But you generally don't see lions taking on adult elephants. And it would be a very, very long struggle. And I've never seen it, and I'm not sure that I would want to. I would, because it's part of the learning experience, and I would want to experience it once, but I think I would find it very difficult, because if a buffalo bull takes a while for lions to kill, imagine what an elephant kill is like. I don't know whether any of you out there have ever actually seen lions kill an elephant, but it must be quite an experience. Let's move off the topic of elephants being killed by lions and go back to Byron, because apparently it's quite an elephant-themed day.
Now, I've come down into the Mulawati just to have a look around, see if we can't find any tracks or signs of a leopard somewhere perhaps. Or what bird have we got up there? A bird just flew. It's a black-collared barbet. Right at the top to the right of that tree. There we go. We did see that this morning. So, for those of you who just joined, I'm on a bird quest to see how many birds I can get in 2 weeks while I'm here, see what the list can, but it has to be shown on camera, so that's the difficult thing, is showing them on camera. A beautiful black-collared barbet. I really enjoy driving through these drainage lines. Oh, Chris, hang on a second. There are two black-collared barbets there. Now, let's see if they call, because they do a duet. So let's see if that's a male and female. I wonder, it would be wonderful if they called for us. Two there now. Chris, you asked, are there any birds that fly from the UK down to South Africa in our summer months? I think the only one I can think, I think the barn swallows, if I'm not mistaken. I think some of them come from the UK. I don't know what else. Now I'm trying to think. There's some more birds. I've joined southern black tits. If you just scan a little bit left, also at the top of that tree, it's a little bit further left, a little bit further. Yeah. No, there we go. There's one. Southern black tit. There we go. That's another one we can add to the list. I can hear chin spot batters calling in the distance. 3 blind mice. James will shout at me for saying that. Anyway, let's head back to Jamie in the Mara. He's still got those wonderful elephant.
Well, I do, but they're really, really far away. Unfortunately, they've gone where I fear to follow for fear of being the first to be added to, what did Brent call it? The Marshmallow Club. I don't want to be the first person to get stuck. I'll never live it down. It's going to be very tricky to follow them, and it's a lot cooler than it was, which to me suggests that it's time to start heading back towards the Agamas to see whether or not they've popped out. And looking at the weather that is slowly building, I have to be honest in saying that I'd like to be relatively close to home. We can survive the rain, but it's not an easy experience. No, I'm just making my way slightly closer. We'll go visit the Agamas. There's more elephants over there. There's actually lots and lots of them. Here we go. I'll stop for a moment. They are very far away though. I haven't had a close elephant encounter here yet. Not a proper one. So there you go, Stacey. You wonder if I missed the close contact with the animals that we had in Djuma. I certainly have missed it. I've missed the animal characters that we've got to know. It doesn't mean that we haven't had close contact with the animals, though, especially at night. The lions will come right past our vehicle. They're not shy here at all. So I've had the close contact, but yes, a lot of the stuff is quite far away. The roads are further apart. And I've missed having close elephant encounters, I must say. But I think that's more just because our focus at the moment has been on the migration. And I haven't really put myself in a position where we have had close elephant encounters. But yes, I miss catching up with Tamba every day and Hosana and Shungile. Absolutely. You can't help but form an attachment to the animals that you see each and every single day. But we're forming new attachments as well. Getting to know the different elephants, getting to know the lions, the cheetah, the secretary birds. Oh, speaking of secretary birds, thank you those of you that sent through the fact that they are all basically in the accipiter order. So the same order as hawks and vultures and harriers and those sorts of birds. As far as I know, I was thinking about it and I do vaguely remember they're in a completely unique family, all of their own. Speaking of birds and feathered friends, Byron is adding once more to his list with a green pigeon.
You see it there?
Yeah. Copy, Tristan, thank you. Look at this, everyone. A beautiful African green pigeon. Oh, that's a nice surprise. It's another one to add to the list. Is that 25? Am I on 25 already? Sorry, I'm laughing at Megan. Megan said I was a quarter of the way, so I thought, oh wow, we're on 25. But she said, no, we've just got to 20. So Megs will do math lessons when we get back to camp. I'll get some cards and we'll do some times tables. Now, for those of you obviously don't know Megan, I can tell you now, she's sitting in final control, radiating red from her face as we speak. She does go bright red when she gets a bit embarrassed. It's great that we can laugh at each other. I know they laugh at me all the time, not necessarily with me. Look, at that beautiful pigeon. That's lovely. You see it feeding on the jackalberries. They love feeding on fruit. Fruit, nuts, and mice. No, just fruit. There's some monkeys jumping around there too, actually, in the jackalberry. Also enjoying the top left. Seb, actually, there was one moving. We might catch a glimpse of it a little bit further left. There, straight at the top. There we go. There he is. There we go. Well done. Little vervet monkeys enjoying the jackalberry fruit. We've had some luck with birds and animals. Chitty Meg, a good day to you. You asked if I enjoy the birds more than the mammals. Not necessarily, Meg. I think I must be honest. I enjoy both, and at times it's funny. I go through phases. I go through phases. I go through phases where I enjoy birding a lot, and then I'll do a few weeks of birding. Doesn't matter where I am, I'll take my binoculars and do a bit of birding, and then kind of phase out of it a bit and focus on the animals. And I think with this challenge now, it's quite fun. So now I'm back into the birding, it looks like. So Chitty Meg, I don't know. I love both, but I do enjoy birding. That's a nice view of the vervet monkey. Oh, hang on. Tristan's found an owl. I'm jealous. Let's go have a look what it is.
We have, Byron. So we were sitting here and the birds were alarm calling. So we sat for a while and we looked and we saw where the birds were jumping around. And there, perched high up in a knobthorn amongst the knobthorn flowers, is a beautiful little pearl-spotted owlet. Now, it's all puffed up and is all fluffy, and that's why it looks larger than it actually is. When it flattens all of that out, it will be a much smaller bird. But it's amazing how if you just stop for 2 seconds, when you hear something out of place, when you hear birds making that spishing sounds, that psh, 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 then you know that something's not right. And generally when they make that sound, it's either for an owl and these big punch in and show all of you. But there we go. So you can see it blends quite well, and that's even really punched in. Its coloration is actually quite good to blend in with those little cream flowers as well. Look at that. How difficult you can see how difficult it is to actually see them. Now, Elena, you want to know if there's a difference between an owl and an owlet? Well, Elena, it's just the size. So our owlets are our tiny little ones. So they're all the small owls that weigh close to 100 grams. And then our owls proper are all the bigger ones that are much larger than that. So owlets get the name just because of their very small size, and off it goes flying into the distance there. It's been tired of being shouted at by various different birds, and so it's going to go find somewhere else to camouflage. Don't worry, Senzo, it's flown away now. But that was very cool. What a nice surprise to see. It's really good when we get to see owls. It's not often that we get to see them, so I'm really glad that we managed to find that little one. The Mulawati has been an absolute gold mine for birds lately, particularly owls. Now, Tax is calling me, and I just want to quickly get hold of him. I don't know why he would be calling me. Go ahead, Tax. So he's just wondering about the den site for the Nkahumas. So I just want to quickly answer him, but my my cable is stuck. Tax at the moment, no, I don't know. No one's checked it. We haven't had any signs of her, but I would imagine that they're still there. There's no tracks coming out. So he's just asking about Nkuhuma's den and whether or not it's still active or if they've moved them, because the Nkuhumas, the last tracks we had went into the Manyaleti, and he's wondering if that female with the cubs went with them, because it's a long time for her to have left cubs if she hasn't come back. We haven't picked up any signs of lion tracks going back into that area, so it seems as though she must still be somewhere around there. Either that or she's really leaving those cubs for a long time, which shows her inexperience. Remember that it is the youngest female that's got these cubs, and she will not have had cubs before, so it's going to be a bit of an inexperienced session for her, and it's going to be quite difficult for her to kind of work out what's going on and to make sure she looks after them. So I really hope she did stay with the cubs and didn't go with the pride all the way into Manyaleti itself. But hopefully they will be back tomorrow, and that would be quite nice if they are, especially if the little ones are around. Now Byron, I think, has got another feathered friend as he strives forward to get to his 100 mark, and let's go across to him before it flies away.
It's going to come through. Look, we've got some Francolins, everyone, crested Francolins. Add that to the list, and a big Kudu bull. Look at that. How's that for timing? Wow, this Kudu is in spectacular condition. Look how muscular he is. You can see the definition. I think I might call this Kudu James Hendry. In great shape. Hope James is watching. That's always nice seeing these big Kudu bulls. We were chatting about them earlier. I said they're one of my favorites out here. Apparently James is watching. Oh dear. James, cut like a kudu. Now I'm going to continue, because before James sends me hate mail. A Theory, a new viewer. Good afternoon, Theory, and welcome to Safari Live. Lovely to have you. Hope you're enjoying it. Theory, you asked how many birds do we have? You. Sorry, got distracted there a second. You asked how many birds there are in Africa. Now, I think there's about 926 species. I think it is 140 species in southern Africa that we see, about 940 species. I'm not sure about the rest of Africa, Theory. I actually don't know. There's obviously a number of species, but southern Africa, so that's just to give you an idea, that is Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and South Africa. Those five, the southern part of South Africa. Those are the bird species that we get down here. So about 940 odd, I think. Sorry, you know what? Let me turn around. I want to go back along there. Apparently, James was saying, if he looks like a kudu, what do I look like? I don't know. An aardvark. An aardvark. Alright, let's head back to Tristan while I get through this drainage line quickly.
Now, we're just slowly but surely heading towards Chitwa, because there's some very exciting news. Apparently there is a young male leopard somewhere on Chitwa. I can't hear exactly where, so I'm going to try and explore and see if I can't find him. I was hoping to go to Chitwa Dam and chill, and maybe we'd get lucky with something, but it sounds like there is a leopard there somewhere. So hopefully it will be one of our combatants that we had the other day that was involved, and I think it will be, oh no, it won't be. We had Mvula the other day, but I was about to say I thought it was the first leopard we've seen since that fight. So it's exciting news. At least there is a spotted cat somewhere. But before we get to our spotted cat, there's a rather lanky spotted animal right in front of me. Let's see if we can just position ourselves a little bit better for our lanky, tall giraffe. There we go. It's just the one giraffe on its own by the looks of things, which is quite interesting. It looks like it could be a female, which is even more puzzling. Generally, the females are not on their own, although we know that giraffe have a very loose social structure, so it's can't be that surprising, but for the most part they don't like to spend too much time by themselves. I'm trying to see the ossicones on top to see if they are thin and narrow, which they are. So it is a female that we see there. You can see a bit of black hair on top. If it was a male, it would be thicker, broader, and it would be bald on top, not thin-haired like that. So it is a female. I wonder if the rest aren't tucked somewhere in these thickets. There's quite a few tall bush willows around. You can see how well that one blends in with its neck behind the tree. So if others are further in, we might not be able to see them. But nice to see a giraffe. It's been a few days since I've seen one of these, so always happy to see giraffe around. They're such elegant animals, and you'll find that the way that they move is always intriguing to me. It's kind of this elegant swagger that they've got. Now, giraffe will always be accompanied by birds. You've got oxpeckers that are on the actual giraffe itself, and they're feeding off all the ticks. Giraffe tend to pick up a lot of ticks. They can't groom themselves as well as some of the other antelope, given that they have a long neck and long legs, and so you will find ticks, and that's why heavily populated with oxpeckers. And the other bird is the fork-tailed drongo, which is the one just to the right, and that follows the giraffe around just to be able to find any insects that the giraffe disturbs as it walks or disturbs on the trees itself. But there's a nice just comparison between the size of the giraffe and the little fork-tailed drongo. But you can see long, elongated face, eyelashes, those white ears. There's such beautiful animals, and the reason why they have such a long face is because giraffe are animals that target very specific types of food. Most of the food that they eat is sharp, spiny, thorn trees, and that means that you've got to keep your eyes out of the way. So a long muzzle allows them to be able to get their muzzle in there and feed off varying leaflets as they go along. It also keeps the eyes away from thorns, so it's a good structure to have, and it houses that extra long tongue that they have. Remember that their tongue is close to 30 centimeters, which is an incredible length for a tongue. It means that they can stick it out and wrap it around those thorny trees and delicately pluck those little leaflets from between all of them. It really is quite amazing to see them feed, but just as quickly as we saw it, it disappears. Now if we come back, there you go. How amazing is that? Such a tall, big animal can disappear in the space of 2 seconds into the thickets. So, unfortunately, we're not going to have much more of a view of our giraffe, and we've got another spotty friend to go and try and find, so let's carry on. Nice surprise, though, to see our giraffe. Always good when we see them. So, a very good surprise indeed. Now, I'm going to quickly head across to Chitwa. While I do that, Jamie Patterson is still bumbling around in the Mara, and I'm sure she's seen a few of these lanky individuals today, but I wonder what's next on the horizon for Jamie.
I'm looking to see whether or not there are any giraffe on the horizon, but alas, not today. There's a big group of them that lives around our road up to the top of the hill, and I see them regularly on my way home at night. I always make sure that we go very, very slowly because it's exceptionally rocky there, and I'm always surprised by the sheer agility of the giraffe and the way that they navigate those rocks without being able to see them, because they don't look down at their feet while they walk. Very skillful. So I've made my way back towards the Agamas, and there's quite a few vehicles there that want to go and see them. And there's quite a few people that haven't had the opportunity to do so yet, including a couple of Safari Live viewers. So I've left them to enjoy the lions. We'll go back to this male instead, and we'll spend the rest of our time out here with him. A lovely question from Rena. Rena is 6 years old and would like to know if lions take dust baths like the other animals. Rena, not that often. I have seen them rolling in the dirt, but that's usually just because their back's a little bit itchy or something like that. But can I tell you what lions do? Lions do roll in smelly things. So I've seen them rolling in wildebeest dung, I've seen them rolling in hyena scat, I've seen them rolling in lots of smelly things. And I don't quite know why they do that. I mean, I guess it's possible that they roll in wildebeest dung to hide the smell of themselves so that they can successfully sneak up on the wildebeest without having to worry that they smell them. But the other smelly stuff, I just don't know. But lions don't need to dust bath. Well, one of the reasons that they don't need to dust bath is because they groom each other. So they keep each other clean. Byron, your list is increasing at a rate of knots. Let's go back so he can show you a very pretty bird.
Blue she's. Oh, look at this. 2 beautiful lilac-breasted rollers. We haven't seen them yet on camera. They're very close to us. And the light is perfect. Look at that color, everyone. That is really beautiful. Wonderful. Can you hear it making a bit of a noise? I wonder if these lilac-breasted rollers are perhaps nesting in this tree. Look at that. Oh, you can even see the sun glint in its eye. Very harsh call, and it is a bird that we see quite regularly, but they're really beautiful. It's always nice seeing these lilac-breasted rollers, and I enjoy their character too. You know, the lilac-breasted rollers, not really afraid of anything. You often see them mobbing large birds of prey and chasing them around. They're actually quite tenacious, these little lilac-breasted rollers. Oh, lovely. Wow, look at that. They're nice and close, so you can see the detail beautifully on the bird. That's a good question. Kirsten wants to know, can we see eyelashes on the lilac-breasted roller? I don't know. Yeah. Can you see eyelashes there? No. I think the lilac-breasted roller is known for plucking its eyelashes. I'm joking. It doesn't look like they've got eyelashes. Look, those feathers are so close to the top of the eye. They probably protect the eye enough, those feathers that are around the eye. Really nice and peaceful this afternoon. Lovely temperature. The temperature is starting to drop a little bit. So I'm going to put a jacket on, and while I do that, let's head across to Jamie, who now has a beautiful male lion she wants to show you.
Well, I mean, we do have a beautiful male lion, and I would like to show it to you, but first let's examine exactly how much of his meal he has consumed. Might be a little bit upsetting for those of you with sensitive stomachs if you're not comfortable with carcasses. Now would be the time to look away. Well, about 2 minutes ago would have been about the time to look away. What strikes me about this is that he actually hasn't eaten much of it at all. Nibbled away around the armpit, and he's taken out, it looks like he's taken out the liver and the lungs, which is sort of always the first thing to go when lions or when any predators feed, actually, particularly on big kills. The stomach contents, of course, they leave behind. It's not particularly digestible for them. It doesn't do them any good. So they leave that behind. But the kidneys, the liver, the heart, the lungs, those are all the most nutritious part of a wildebeest kill or any kill that they make. And he's eaten the organs, and that's pretty much it. And I guess at this time of the year, the lions can afford to be quite fussy. As we go back to our male lion, what I would expect to see is him breathing quite fast with his full belly. And that brings us to Mr. A's question about whether or not lions get heat exhaustion. And the answer to that is they absolutely do. And in fact, they are exceptionally intolerant to changes in internal body temperature. Their body temperature can't rise much more of around about a degree before they really start to be in trouble, and possibly about 1.5 degrees before they really start to suffer. And what that means is that in general terms, the lions will spend a lot of time sleeping, they'll spend a lot of time in the shade, and while they're digesting like this, they'll spend a lot of time sleeping and panting, because the breakdown of the meat, apart from just the fact that they're full-bellied, and everybody knows you feel warmer with a full belly, apart from that, the digestive process of that meat releases quite a lot of heat, so they do get very hot. It's also one of the reasons why the males tend to, or one of the reasons why they've got this reputation of being not particularly good at hunting, and some people even believe they can't hunt at all. And that's because with that big heavy head of mane, they actually will struggle. They don't have the same stamina of the females because they get hot much quicker. They're bulkier, they're stronger, but they do get hot very quickly. So whilst they absolutely can hunt, there are physiological differences there. So yes, lions can get heat exhaustion. You can see he's gathered quite the collection of flies on his belly, and I have noticed there's definitely more flies around with the arrival of the wildebeest. Yes, Angeline, those are indeed flies on his belly. Lots and lots and lots of flies. No tsetse flies, just bog standard flies that have gathered together on this particular lion. He's been in a scrap. There's an injury on his leg there. And then, of course, there's the cuts around his face. Looks like he got into quite an uncomfortable fight. And that injury around his eye does look very painful. Now, Robert, watching our male lion sleep, you want to know if lions or leopards ever get attacked by, what was that, Kirst? Was that other predators while they sleep? Yes, absolutely they do. Remember, every predator out here is competition for another predator. So a big male lion is probably not likely to be attacked in his sleep because he's the biggest, strongest predator out here, unless there are marauding males that have come in which case they might try to sneak up on him. A lion will sneak up on a sleeping leopard. A leopard will not sneak up on a sleeping lion. That's not a fight that they want to pick. I have seen hyenas sneak up on sleeping leopards before. So yes, it does happen. For the most part, though, the male lions don't have much to worry about. I'm not exactly sure what it is that Tristan has, so it'll be as much of a surprise for me as it is for you.
Well, look at that. Isn't that a sight for sore eyes? The beautiful Hosana in the most perfect afternoon light. It seems as though he's spending quite a bit of time to fix the mast, and we were talking about